Namaste.
Namaste board gamers, and welcome to the Board Game Guru's How to Play video for Konja from Pleasant Company Games. In this game, two players take on the roles of beardy shaman wizards, desperately trying to summon the rain, break the drought, and impress the old king. The resources in the game are power, gold, and magic. Gold is generally used to buy relics from the offering, and in some cases you can buy clouds or even upgrade them. Power tokens can be spent to activate your relics, which then will allow you to re-roll your dice, and magic is spent on the spell cards. You start with a hand of 3 spell cards, and that is the maximum number of cards you can ever have in your hand. There are 3 phases in a turn. The first is the Ancestors phase, in which you invoke the favor of a specific ancestor by placing one of the idols onto that particular ancestor. Invoking an ancestor will give the active player the favor, which is represented at the top of the card, and then both players receive the blessing, or the lower half of the card. The rain ancestor allows the active player to upgrade one of their clouds, and both players to buy clouds for the specified amount of gold. The spell ancestor allows the active player to discard as many cards from their hand as they would like, and then both players to draw up to the maximum hand size of 3. The merchant ancestor allows the active player to sell a relic, and then both players are allowed to buy relics from the offering. The amount of gold required is signified in the top right-hand corner of the relic. Next up is the resource ancestor, and the active player in this case decides which of the resources will be received, and each player receives 2 of that resource. And finally, the spirit ancestor allows both players to untap up to 4 of their relics, while the active player receives a spirit token, which gives them the option to untap an additional relic at some point in the future. Once the active player has selected an ancestor, and that ancestor has given its favor and blessing, it's time to move on to the bones phase, in which the active player rolls the 5 green dice and 2 white action dice. Dice rolls are mitigated through the use of the relics ahead of the collection phase. When the active player is happy with their dice combination, they move on to the collection phase, in which they turn their dice combinations into resources and clouds. One interesting aspect in the game is a red die that's brought in through a specific starting relic. The red die is essentially an attack die, which is rolled in an opponent's turn. The red die replaces a green die of lower value in the final dice pool of the active player. This can of course disrupt the active player's plans and introduces a very interesting interactive element. 21 points in clouds triggers the end of the game, and after playing an equal number of turns, the player with the most victory points wins.